Good morning. Today, we've come together for the solemn tradition of remembering and honoring the lives of those lost in the September 11th terrorist attacks. It is a privilege to open this remembrance ceremony on behalf of ALPA's more than 78,000 pilots as we mark the 23rd anniversary of the attacks. I'd like to welcome the ALPA leaders and line pilots gathered here today, as well as our colleagues from across the airline industry, our union staff, and members of our Vallow Park community. Our tradition here in ALPA's Remembrance Garden and in so many hallowed sites across our nation allows us to honor the lives lost and sacrifices made to help others and pass this moment on from generation to generation. By coming together to remember the pain inflicted by these attacks, we reinforce our resolve to prevent anything like it from ever happening again and rededicate ourselves to never forgetting. While many of you, like me, remember this day 23 years ago like it was yesterday, able to recall the gut-wrenching punch of helplessness and shock, we know that time and generational distance softens that blow. So as we welcome new generations into our ranks, it becomes more and more important that we embrace those moments to remind ourselves and those who didn't experience it just how important our commitment to aviation safety and security is to restore our industry. We demonstrate this commitment every day in our extensive work to close holes in aviation security. Last year, we won critical security enhancement to require secondary barriers on our new commercial passenger airlines. And in the FAA reauthorization bill passed earlier this year, we opened a pathway to retrofit existing aircraft to close this gap in security. ALPA is also working to advance the Cargo Flight Deck Security Act, which requires all cargo aircraft to be equipped with intrusion-resistant flight deck doors, and the Safer Skies Act to require all commercial passenger airlines to meet the same security standards. Dedicated on September 11th of 2006, the 5th anniversary of the attacks, ALPA's Remembrance Garden invites us to carry on the tradition of being together on this day. The 10-ton center stone comes from a quarry just a few miles from the field in Shanksville, where United Airlines Flight 93 went down. It's split to represent the fractures that 9/11 attacks created. Portions of the outer wall of the Pentagon and 2 sections of steel I-beams from the World Trade Center are also built into our garden of reflection. Like the stone and steel before us, our commitment to preventing another tragedy like this will persist. Around this moment, 8:46 a.m., 23 years ago, our industry and our country changed forever. Lives, families, communities, and the United States were torn apart as our workplaces, our aircraft, were turned into weapons of war and terror. The attacks left us broken, but as a nation, we rebuilt stronger and more united than ever before. We witnessed the deaths of not only the passengers and crew members on board the flights and those in the buildings that were attacked, but also of courageous first responders on the ground. These attacks represent the absolute worst in humanity, yet they also brought out the best in us, and we responded as a country to mourn, heal, and rise from the ashes. The memory of the lives lost and the families and communities broken will always live on in the memories of our nation through ceremonies like this. And the more progress we've made to make aviation more secure so this can never happen again. Through our work, our remembrances, and our resolve, we honor all those who have died. At this time, ALPA United Master Executive Chair, Captain Ann Worcester, will share her thoughts on this day.
Good morning. Today, we gather to remember and honor the lives lost on September 11th, 2001. It is a day that forever changed the course of our nation and our industry. As we stand here 23 years later, we are reminded not only of the profound grief we felt, but also of the resilience and unity that emerged from the ashes. As chair of the United MEC, I am deeply humbled to stand before you. This ceremony is a testament to the enduring spirit of our profession and the strength of our union. We come together not just to mourn, but to reaffirm our commitment to never forget the sacrifices made by our colleagues, friends, and families. The events of 9/11 are engraved into our memories. On that fateful day, our hearts filled with sorrow and our shoulders with an unbearable weight. Yet, in the face of such immense tragedy, we witnessed the incredible courage and heroism of so many. To the younger generation of pilots here today, I implore you to never forget the significance of 9/11. It is far more than a historic event. It is a testament to our profession. The pilots, flight attendants, and passengers who lost their lives are not just names etched in stone. They are the embodiment of bravery and dedication to duty. The tragic events of 9/11 tested our resolve in ways we never could have imagined. Our commitment to safety, security, and the well-being of our passengers is paramount. Let the memory of 9/11 inspire all of us to be vigilant, to be compassionate, and to uphold the highest standards of our profession. We thank and pay tribute to the 4 charities established to honor the United pilots from flights 93 and 175. The Captain Jason Dahl Scholarship Fund, the Leroy W. Homer Jr. Foundation, the 9/11 Memorial Garden of Reflection in honor of Captain Victor Saraceni, and the Michael Horrocks Football Scholarship Endowment Fund. As we remember the past, we also look to the future. The legacy of 9/11 is not one of fear, but of perseverance and unity. It is our duty to carry forward the lessons learned and to honor the memory of those we lost. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Wooster. Now, I'd like to ask ALPA Canada President, Captain Tim Perry, to say a few words.
Fellow officers, friends, and distinguished guests. Whenever I have the privilege to stand on this sacred spot to deliver remarks, I do so with humility in my heart. No matter how many years pass by, we must never forget the tragic events of September 11th, 2001. Because when we take time to reflect upon what happened that day, it allows us to unite, to grow, and work towards a better future. Whether we live north or south of our shared border, our countries and our citizens, who were already forever and uniquely linked, forged a new and even stronger bond. As history unfolded on that terrible day, 23 years ago, nearly 3,000 lives were needlessly lost, including dozens of Canadians living their lives in this country. However, despite the atrocities that unfolded that morning, the world, and in particular, our two nations, came together to showcase the best of what humanity has to offer. As chaos unfolded on Ground Zero and the Pentagon just a few short miles from here, and in Somerset County, Pennsylvania, the bravery of first responders, military personnel, and everyday citizens who risked their lives to help was on full display. And as we pay respects to those who sadly fell, we also recognize the sacrifices made by the heroes and family members left behind. And we admire their bravery as they live each day of their lives in the new world that was left behind for us all. Further north, as flights were grounded, communities like Gander, Newfoundland and Labrador showcased to the world the best of what Canada and Canadians have to offer by openly accepting thousands of stranded passengers into their homes and into their hearts. They provided strangers who quickly became friends with comfort, compassion, warm meals, and a safe place to lay their heads. On behalf of our 12,000 ALPA Canada members, I want to pass along our sincere appreciation to our colleagues and ALPA staff for their efforts to keep alive the memory of the sacrifices made 23 years ago today. Looking inward, as ALPA pilots, we pride ourselves on our professionalism, our efforts to look after the best interests of each other, our passengers, and our noble profession. We continue to work on behalf of our profession to ensure that air travel is the most trusted and safest form of transportation in the world. As we stand here today united, we must always look at the lessons learned from the past and continue to grow. Whether that means becoming better human beings or better pilots, we must strive to make every day matter. As always, we remain strong, we remain unified in our quest, and most importantly, as pilots, we continue to diligently and dutifully go about our work, and in so doing, shine a light on the goodness of humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Perry. I'd now like to honor the crew members and employees who were lost in the attacks. Captain Wendy Morse, ALPA First Vice President, will lead us with a traditional toll of the bell for each name as called. Airline pilots honor the memory of United Flight 93, Captain Jason Dahl. First Officer Leroy Homer, Jr. Flight Attendant Lorraine Bay. Flight Attendant Sandra Bradshaw. Flight Attendant Wanda Green. Flight Attendant Cece Lyles. Flight Attendant Deborah Welsh. United Flight 175, Captain Victor Saracini. First Officer Michael Horrocks. Flight Attendant Robert Fangman. Flight Attendant Amy Jarrett. Flight Attendant Amy King. Flight Attendant Catherine Laboure. Flight Attendant Alfred Marchand. Flight Attendant Michael Tarot. Flight Attendant Alicia Titus. Customer Service Representative Marianne McFarland, and Customer Service Representative Jesus Sanchez. American Airlines Flight 11, Captain John Oganowski, First Officer Thomas McGinnis, Flight Attendant Barbara Arestegui, Flight Attendant Jeffrey Kallman, Flight Attendant Sarah Lowe, Flight Attendant Karen Martin, Flight Attendant Kathleen Nicosia, Flight Attendant Betty Ong, Flight Attendant Jean Roger, Flight Attendant Diane Snyder, Flight Attendant Madeline Sweeney. American Flight 77, Captain Charles Burlingame, First Officer David Charlebois, Flight Attendant Michelle Heidenberger, Flight Attendant Jennifer Lewis, Flight Attendant Kenneth Lewis, Flight Attendant Renee May. At this time, I'd like to invite Captain Sean Creed, ALPA Vice President Administration Secretary, Captain Wes Clapper, ALPA Vice President, Finance Treasurer, to place a wreath before the garden stones.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Today, airline pilots and all of us gathered here share a tradition of remembrance. On behalf of the pilots and staff of the Airline Pilots Association International, thank you again for being part of this morning's ceremony.